All right. Hello. Welcome to the Activate Now podcast. And today's episode is very special to me, dear to my heart, because my friend Nancy is joining us, Nancy Drope. How do I say your last name? I've never said it.
Drope.
Drope. Perfect. Nancy Drope.
It could be dope with an R or rope with a D.
So fun. Nancy Drope is here. She is a mom, a grandmother. She's a retired school teacher, and she's also an astrologer, and she teaches yoga as well. And we had the pleasure of meeting in a book club. So friends introduced us, and I have just been a big fan ever since. And today, what sparked our conversation, why we wanted to jump on and do this recording, is a post that I put up on Instagram. And what it said was, remember being a teen? Ask that question. And it said, remember wishing your parents gave you more credit and took you more seriously? So that was what my post read. And there were some other comments that I put in there. And Nancy responded, and she said she definitely remembers her teenage years, and she definitely remembers that her parents weren't present with themselves enough to be present or even notice what she was doing. And then I asked if we could talk about this, if I could share that post. And Nancy was so gracious. She said that she'd love for me to share her words. And she said, we want parents to wake up to themselves so they are present with their children. And that just touched my heart. And I just said, that's it. We have to record something. So welcome, Nancy. I'm so happy to have you. I'm so happy to talk about this. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. I think it's just so important that that as your post mentioned, that people really wake up to themselves first of all, and not to look back at their parents that they did wrong or anything. They did the best that they could at the time, but I just feel, that I was maybe put myself in a place of wanting to not repeat a pattern, and
Okay.
gone through my own trials and tribulations to be able to wake up to something new. And children are dear to my heart. I have 4, and I have now 3 grandchildren. So even more blessed for me that
Yeah.
that they evolve in their most natural state. And I found through astrology, I just took it up recently, probably 7 or 8 years ago now, and it is really has worked for me to open up myself, number one. And then now, of course, I look at my children's charts, I look at my grandchildren's charts, and I see what is inherent in them. And the more number of charts that I read, I just cannot, I can't make it up.
No.
I cannot make this material up. Like, it's just showing up all the time. So
And there's so many clues, and there's so much goodness to be to learn about ourselves. And I love that tool helps, because I do really enjoy it. I do find myself going, oh, well, okay,
well,
obvious,
here's the thing is that
obviously.
it's not for everybody.
No.
But my teacher would say, for those non-believers, that astrology believes in you.
Uh-huh.
So just be curious, be that child
Right.
again. Like sometimes what happens, in our life experience is that our emotions have been suppressed, and we haven't been able to speak up and speak out, or until something happens, and then you do speak up. And
Absolutely.
all in divine timing. It all happens just, synchronistically at the right time. And for me, what happened, I suppose, in my learning of the astrology was that Saturn, the planet Saturn, is your first life lesson. And in the zodiac, You ask somebody their zodiac sign. So Lucy, I know that yours is Pisces. However,
Mhm.
your Saturn sign is likely different. I haven't actually looked at your chart, so I don't know
Okay.
what it is, but I know that mine is not. I'm a Taurus. People would say, "Oh, what's your zodiac sign?" I say, "Well, I'm a
Uh-huh.
Taurus," but my Saturn sign is actually in Sagittarius, which is a very, very different energy. So the Taurus energy is Earth. It's slow moving, it's practical, it's solid, it's grounding, but it's a fixed sign. So you've heard people say, "Oh, the stubborn bull." Well, yes, I can acknowledge that about. I can certainly acknowledge that about myself. Um,
Uh-huh.
at the same time, being determined and reliable.
Mhm.
And I love comfort. The sort of the mothering thing is a very natural thing for me. My
Mhm.
moon is actually in Cancer, which is the mother, the nurturer, and whatnot. But going back to that first life lesson, Saturn,
Uh-huh.
Saturn is uh, the planet of discipline. So it's the thing that you do not want to hear about yourself. And it comes knocking on the door every 7 years to remind you, are you lighting yourself up? Are you doing what you are really here to do on the planet? It has a lot to do with boundaries, structure. It's like the four corners of the a foundation of a home, or
Okay.
the four elements in this elements: air, earth, water, and fire.
Mhm.
It's just a really grounded, solid place, and it's authoritative and
Okay.
duty and responsibility. So mine is in Sagittarius, which is that very different energy from the Taurus grounding. It's in mutable energy, which is about relating to people or relating in general. It's flexible. It does not like to be held down. It's a freedom seeker. Um,
Okay.
it's fire, so it's inspiration, it's intuition, it's spontaneous, it's impulsive, which I'm learning that, oh yeah, I had that impulsivity, so
Mhm.
to speak. Sagittarius again is a freedom seeker. It loves to travel, it's independent, it thrives on change. An extrovert, very philosophical, sometimes can be a little tactless. So there's different energies of that Taurus energy, of that earthbound practical, and then
Uh-huh.
now switching it into the fire, very, very different. And so when I learned about that, I have now, initiated in my fire, and I work at it every day. It's not something that I found this magical tool and and now I'm
Mhm.
fixed. Like that's not how it works. It's a reminder. I remind myself every day to keep myself elevated. It's one simple thing that I do is I keep a candle lit in the house. I have to remember clearly to blow it out when I leave the house, but
Of
just
course.
by having that candle lit is like a reminder for me to stay elevated and light myself up, which in turn now allows me to, give that to my clients and my children and my grandchildren and the people that I come in contact with. So it's fascinating. It's a really lovely tool.
And I love how empowered you sound when you talk about it. And I feel like there's a story there. I feel like maybe you could share a little more about what your teenage years were like, how you reflect on them now, and how you can see um, the difference in how you know yourself now, because it's something that it sounds like it transformed for you,
Mhm.
and maybe you didn't really understand. I'm not sure. I'd love to hear the story about who you were as a teenager and what was going on and how you found your way. What was that journey like for you? Because now you just sound so like you sound empowered, but I love it that it's perfect for the Activate Now podcast, because you're activating yourself. You're literally telling us you do these practices like lighting a candle to keep yourself, remind yourself of who you are and to be that person in this world. And that's, I feel, so beautiful and so inspirational. But tell us what that journey was like. Tell us and connect it for me to the Saturn life lesson. I'd love to hear a little bit more if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, no, well, it's a long story. I'm actually going to be 65. I can't believe it in a couple
Oh,
of weeks. Yeah, I'm celebrating the perfect time to wake up.
wow.
Um, so I would say that, as a child, I have three older siblings and a younger brother. Yeah, sisters, three older sisters and a younger brother, and we're like three different families. They're 8 and 6 years older, and 6 years younger than me. So that it's like we are three different families. So um, in that regard as well. We didn't until recently, to be honest. I'm going to say in the last probably 20 years, we didn't really get to know each other, just because of the age gap and the different things that our parents were doing at the time. So I would say, if I reflect back on myself as a child, to be honest, that I was very shy, and I didn't come through and say what I wanted, because I was highly influenced by, being told what to do, and that I'm not going to say that my voice didn't count, but I just didn't feel that it was heard.
Mhm.
So I didn't make a big fuss. I just got along, right? Being the fourth of five, I just watched what was in front of me, and learned that it's probably better not to speak up. Uh, and not that I wasn't, I had a beautiful experience in my life,
Mhm.
um, but I just didn't feel that self-confidence, until I took up these practices. I came through maybe in a challenging academically, but I guess I exceeded myself in sport, which is where really I got my confidence from. But
Okay.
when I wasn't in sport, then what was I? Right. So,
Right.
so that's a really interesting thing to see, is that we gain confidence in sport, but we want to, I think, have that integrate into our the rest of our life, not just on the sport field or whatever activity is that you're doing. Um,
Mhm.
so then, so that would probably be a lot of what was happening, is that I felt empowered in that place, but then off of that was not there. So now, learning the Saturn piece of that, it's okay to speak up, and that it's okay um not um I'm going to say, to don't be afraid, right? In
Mm.
part of my studying too, reading this wonderful book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
I know the
yeah. The
book.
author is Susan Jeffers. It was just an
Yeah.
amazing book. So being that shy, tentative child,
Mhm.
being told, to in that age group, you're seen and not heard, um,
Right.
is that there was fear around, speaking up. So integrating into my body through the physical practices, that it's okay to speak up, and that there will be no consequence on the other side of that speaking up, unless, of course, you've got to be ready for for what it is that when you speak up. So
Mhm.
the Saturn, I don't know, the Saturn just gave me permission to be free, more free, and be myself, be more authentic, and again, through the astrology chart, my soul sign, which is your AC, the ascendant,
Mhm.
is in Libra, and Libra. This is interesting because it's following right into this Libra full moon that we're having tonight. We're
Okay,
having
yes.
today. Yeah, today is the Libra full moon, and Libra can be a people pleaser. So
Mm.
in that regard, as a child, if you don't want to get into trouble, you just do things to make sure everything smooths out, and you please everybody, and Libra doesn't like to be alone. It wants to keep balance and harmony, and
Mm.
is very loyal, but and is a gentle person, avoids conflict. So in my lifetime, I learned to avoid conflict, which, you know, because there is fear wrapped around there.
Mhm,
But you get
mhm.
this Saturn first life lesson, which is like, you know, fire it up, you know, don't be afraid, just go for it. And it just opens up a whole new world. Like, you know, the opportunities that I've had since learning the astrology, and I use oracle cards as well. As a matter of fact, the oracle card author I went to high school with, of all things. So
Oh,
so that was an opening. I was like, man, if this lady, like, she's a Hay House author and she's got 4 or 5 books, and I'm like, well, okay, I emailed her. I go, like, where do I start with this? You know, and but that was out of the box thinking, right? It was like, you know, people are going to judge me for using oracle cards or looking at astrology. And I went, well, you know, this Saturn is giving me permission to just go for it and move past that place of worrying what other people are going to think. And so by doing this, again, you know, my clients, and I got an email just yesterday from a client who said, oh my gosh, I can't wait to tell you, my job has shifted. We have to move our appointment. We have to move our next meeting because I'm working and I only have limited hours. And she is really, you know, she's convinced and believes that, you know, the conversation that we had talking about her astrology chart has given her that confidence to move forward, to she's got a different job. Like, you
amazing.
can't make that up. And this is a complete stranger, right? Like
Right.
she contacted me for a reading, and away we went. And when I do readings, honestly, I just, you know, give the information that is on the piece of paper, and we have great conversations, and I recommend books that I have used. And you know, the feedback that I get is so beautiful that I can't not share it.
It's
Mhm.
wonderful. I love hearing how this all came together for you because I feel like I'm called to have these conversations because we all find that activation from something. Like it's going to be different for everybody. The message from me is to be activating yourself, like to be looking and searching and growing as a person. And that's like a curiosity thing, right? Like I feel like it's always sparked by something like curiosity. Somebody shares something. So a story like your story, talking about how astrology has illuminated so much for you so that you understand yourself better, and it's giving you guidance on how to express yourself. It's
Well, it's
so wonderful.
I know. Well, it's permission to be myself, really. It's
Yes.
permission to be myself. So how I explain it, you know, to try to not talk astrology, is that we use the elements, so air, earth, water, and fire. And oh, just as an aside here, you can just maybe see in the side, like, this is my chart. I use this for teaching. And so
Yes.
in fire, like, I have 3 of 10 planets in fire. I
Uh-huh.
have 2 in air, which is the fire is igniting things, getting things going. I have 2 in air, which is communication. I only have
Okay.
1 in earth, which is staying grounded. So this is
Ah,
really fascinating for me, because I find myself rather being somewhere else than right here, right? Like, that is
mhm.
part of learning to come back, right? Like, just
Uh-huh.
keep coming back and keep the fire lit. And then in the water element, I have 3 as well. So it's interesting, if you look at the water is 3 and the fire is 3.
Okay.
Water was putting the fire out. The water is
Oh,
the water is your emotional body, right?
okay.
So learning and understanding about regulating my nervous system, because that's your emotional body, so that
Uh-huh.
I'm not putting the fire out. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, I'm a Pisces.
Yeah,
You
so here's the thing,
want to
is
talk
that
about emotional body? Like I'm
right,
like the
yeah,
master of that.
so when you keep the fire lit, you
Yeah.
dry the water up a little bit, right?
Mm.
And then you can actually come down to earth and communicate with the air. You can
Right.
communicate your needs.
Right. I mean, it's a whole thing for me because my whole life, I mean, I've always been like, my activation is my voice. And I know that by speaking, I'm initiating people and getting them going. So it's like kind of my job in the world to be communicating and talking. And I'm really good emotionally.
Well, it'd be interesting to look at your Saturn to see.
I would love to see that. I would. I feel like you've sparked that curiosity 100%. You
Yeah.
always have. I remember you, can we remember? I don't want to go on a little goose chase here, but what chart reading did we do together when I came to your workshop? Do you
Um,
remember? It was like in February a couple years ago. I
yeah.
got so
I think
much from
that
you.
might have been just about your sun. It might have been just about Pisces. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I break
Okay.
like I do different workshops and I break each planet down because they have
Yes.
so much to talk about. There's so much, each planet has so much to tell you. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
likely just the sun because I have to keep it simple because it can get like people get
Well, you
overwhelmed.
had
I
us.
don't want that to happen, right?
Yeah.
I,
Well,
I don't want.
you had a structure. It was wonderful. Like I remember I'd never seen my chart before.
Mhm.
So then when I saw it and I saw that there's all this complexity and there's all this definition to things, um, it was interesting because the things that really I was, like, why would you say that about me? And then I'd have to sit with it. And there is healing that can happen from that, like,
It's a deep healing. It's a deep
yeah,
healing of
like
getting
an
to know
acknowledgement.
your heart and stay
Yeah.
out of your head.
Right. And I feel like something like that happened there for me regarding connecting with my voice and being willing to speak and tell stories and share. And I was never that person. I was always like, I can honestly tell you, it's not an exaggeration. My entire childhood into my high school years, I was constantly being told I talk too much.
Mhm.
Like I was constantly being suppressed. Like,
Yeah.
and I know in my heart that I wasn't talking too much. Like it wasn't like that. I just was around people that they just weren't interested and they weren't willing to, like, they didn't want to get to know me. They didn't want to listen. They didn't want to hear what I had to say. So I was annoying to them.
Well,
And then
because they had their own stuff to look at and they weren't willing to look at it.
right. Like I was, and I know that now, but as a child, I know that I was feeling like, why am I irritating? Like, why am I irritating this person when all I asked was this? And it's usually like, I can remember I was a very curious child. So my questions were always probing. They were always curious, like, make my world bigger, tell me more, like this and that. And they're like, oh my God.
The chances are is you have a lot of Gemini in your chart. Because
Pop.
Gemini is an air sign. So the air signs
Uh-huh.
are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So
Okay.
any of those signs, chances are is you have a lot of that to be able to share and speak up and really at this point now you don't care what people think. You're just gonna do it.
Well,
Yay! Yay!
what's well, yeah. Well, I'm 47 and I feel like this has been with me since I was 12. I was present to it when I was 12, but I couldn't bring language to it. I couldn't really explain. And what it was is still true to me today. And that's why my work with young people and working with parents is so important to me, is that we do know ourselves at a very young age. And it seems to be the culture of just skipping over young people, not believing them or something. I don't know. So I feel like I'm a voice here to speak for young people and be like, you know what? Everybody comes with these gifts. They
Mhm.
can never be removed.
No.
And like these gifts inside of
These
us need to be activated.
Yes,
And
and these gifts are coming, you'll see it right in the chart. You cannot make,
yeah,
honestly, you can't make it up. And the fact that you said you're 47, so you're coming up to this place in the chart,
yeah.
it's called a Chiron return. So it's when the childhood wound shows up to be healed.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so how
So there
about
you,
this?
here
Let's
you are.
try this on.
It only
So
comes once in a lifetime, so you're spot on.
Well, ta-da, here I am. So I think the wound, we haven't read my chart. We didn't really formally do, like, we just had that interaction over the Instagram post, and that here we are. And so we're having this wonderful conversation. But I feel like the healing for me is to bring a voice to young people and say to their parents, listen to them, get to know them, support them, be curious about who they are, like, transform this. Don't go through the teenage years talking to your child like you know who they are. Like, so there's this whole thing there that's really great for me. And that's why when we connected on that post and we were talking about being present, um just the other day, no, actually, you shared Dr. Shafali's interview, and she talks about how we are in a crisis of connection,
Mhm.
and I felt like, oh my God, those are powerful words. And this is the flavor, the nature of what we're talking about right now, is this, like how many generations is it going to take us to learn this lesson, that our young people have this in them? They have their gifts, they came with them. We need to support them, we need to connect with them, we need to nurture and bring that out. And I feel like we need to, like, let them lead, and that can be very scary to do. I
Well,
have
yeah,
teenagers right now, and I don't feel comfortable sometimes, because I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know if they're going to say, oh my gosh, I want to be a this, or I want to go in this direction. And then I feel like grounded and calm and clear. And I feel at peace with my parenting, because my children know that I see them.
Mhm.
And that's the only message I have, is like, you can know this young person that's in your world. You can be support. Teachers do that.
Yeah.
All kinds of people do that for young people. And I just want more and more of that, because it's with us from a very young age.
Yeah, so in my experience, oftentimes what happens when the control factor comes in, because that's what it is, and
Mhm.
we all have it, is that we want to learn to know ourselves first, and
Yes.
that is going to give ourselves permission to trust and allow our children to be the leaders that they are. And if we can't role model that ourselves, then we're just passing that on to the next generation. So
Yeah, yeah.
so
I've
that's
said
a
that to parents.
yeah, that's a really big piece. The thing is that to really hear that, it takes, it's like, doing your math times tables. You got to do it over and over and over again. And that's why I feel like, the practice, I call them practices. It's yoga practice. It's daily practice of, whether it's a meditation, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's doing like there's something that you need to connect with yourself first, and
Yes.
then you're able to connect with whoever else you do. So you need to, well, you don't need to do anything, but establish,
Mhm.
a personal practice of connecting with yourself before you can go out and connect with anybody else. Just speaking about, your own children and their listening and understanding, is that I'm this earth sign, and I have 4 fire signs. I
Mhm.
birthed I birthed 4 fire signs. Now, if that is not an indicator for me to keep my fire lit, I don't know what else is. Now,
So,
the other piece, just one more thing, is
uh-huh,
that in that fire and earth combination, is
uh-huh.
that they can be so fiery that they exhaust me and burn my earth.
Oh,
And
okay.
so then what happens in my personality is that I let it build, unfortunately, at times, not so much anymore, but as they were growing up, they're in their 30s now. But I'd fill my dump truck full of earth, full of
Mhm.
earth, full of earth, and then I'd put the fire out, which really not a good idea. No. So see how I've learned through this whole,
Right.
astrological thing, is that, maintaining that communication, because that's what it is, right? It's a
Uh-huh.
communication, it's a stopping, it's a pausing, it's a listening, it's a deep, deep, deep listening. Yeah.
Yes. And I feel like you're absolutely right when you said that you have to deal with yourself first. If to be able to be fully present to a child, to a teenager, to listen deeply,
Mhm.
like, yeah, you've got some sorting out to do. Like
Yeah,
I
and
had to
that's
sort out,
okay. And
and it
but
is.
that's okay. It's perfect. And then you communicate that to your kids, right? You
Yeah, oh
communicate
yeah. Oh,
that
they
whole
love
age.
hearing how mom's I'm working on that or whatever. They're like, oh my God. Because
Well,
when I really own it, when I really own that,
yeah.
it gives them permission. I'm imperfect. I'm trying to figure these things out. It's an interesting dynamic. Um, but it all starts with that. It all starts with being that healing piece and activating myself. And then I can really be great at listening to them.
To them. Yeah.
And I just love how you shared that story. And you've really sparked something. I know that you've sparked this curiosity about the Saturn reading. So um,
Well, I just
I
want to
I
let
know what mine is, and you have to tell us. I know that you have a special little offer
Yes, I
for
do.
listeners.
Yeah,
So
so whoever is listening, I will take the first person that reaches out, and I'd be happy to give them a Saturn reading. Yeah.
awesome. So, okay, so we're going to have our contact information wherever you're listening to this, whether it's on YouTube or podcast. There's going to be links there to Nancy. There's also going to be, for anybody curious about the parenting side of this conversation, there's going to be a parent guide available to be downloaded. And yeah, we just want to keep this conversation going. We want to address this. I feel like we need this connection, and we need to establish that with our most important relationships and with our children. And I feel like Nancy, thank you so much for sharing how you found your way and how you activate yourself. It's been wonderful, and I can't wait to hear what happens with whoever gets the Saturn reading. And yeah, we'll just keep going, but for now, thank you so much.
Well, you are so welcome, Lucy, and I'm just really appreciative of this opportunity, especially on the Libra full moon, which is all about communication and creating that harmony and balance. And the sun is in the sun is in Aries, which is that fire sign, which is the initiator
Oh,
again.
wonderful.
And they're the Aries and the Libra, they're opposite each other. What creates the full moon. And so I just wish, everybody who's listening here, a happy full moon, and just continue to communicate with your family and with your friends, and first of all, most importantly, with yourself.
How wonderful. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, we'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.